Welcome to the Living to 100 Club podcast. Here's our host, Dr. Joseph Casciani.
Welcome to the Living to 100 Club, where we explore what it really means to live longer and better. I'm Joe Casciani, a geropsychologist focused on the mindset, habits, and science of aging well. Each episode brings you practical ideas and conversations to help stay engaged, resilient, and purposeful at any age. The program of today's podcast is From Trying to Lose Weight to a New Identity. We're speaking with Fred Ford, author of the international best-selling book, Think and Grow Thin. Fred shares the remarkable story of how he lost 135 pounds, not through dieting alone, but by transforming his mindset and identity. Fred explains how shifting from trying to lose weight to becoming the kind of person who naturally lives a healthy lifestyle changed everything. The conversation explores the psychology behind identity change, visualization, daily habits, and the importance of rewriting the internal story we tell ourselves. Such an important message. First, a little background. Fred Ford is an author, speaker, and personal development coach. He's the international best-selling author of Think and Grow Thin, a book that combines mindset principles with practical lifestyle change strategies to help people create lasting health transformation. Earlier in life, Fred spent more than 20 years performing as a stand-up comedian, honing his ability to connect with audiences through humor and storytelling. Today, he blends that same humor with motivational insights to inspire individuals, especially those over 50, to take control of their health and their future. Fred, welcome to our program today.
Thank you so much, Joe. Pleasure to be here.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. This is a
Same
topic
here.
that I've been talking about for a long time, how to understand that ability to reinvent ourselves,
Right.
redefine ourselves. So let me open with this question. The loss of 135 pounds is remarkable. You said that the turning point wasn't a diet. When did you stop seeing yourself as someone trying to lose weight and instead seeing yourself as a different person?
It happened early on, right after I decided again to go on a diet. I had been on the weight loss, weight gain roller coaster for 30 years. I've
Yeah.
been well over 300 pounds for 2 decades. And when I reached 350.2 pounds is what I weighed on March 1st, 2021. The first thought that came to my mind is I'm closer to 400 pounds than I am 300. I have to do something. I have to make permanent changes here. And of course, the default strategy is always go on a diet. Someone had given me a book called Bright Lines Eating. So I said, all right, let me read this book and let me get on this diet. And I got to page 3 and I didn't get past page 3 on the book. On
Mm.
page 3, the author writes that of obese people trying to get thin, the failure rate is 99%,
Uh-huh.
literally. And this is a statistic, it's not her opinion. And I just put the book down and I was so discouraged having lost and gained weight so many times in my life. I was ready to just give it up right there.
Sure.
But instead, I closed my eyes. I imagined myself sitting across from Jesus and I said a prayer. And I said, I'm confused. I'm scared. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to eat. I don't know how to proceed. But I want to become a one percenter. If there's 1% of the population that's able to do this, that's what I want to do. I'm praying for divine guidance. And in retrospect, I now realize that creating that identity,
Hmm.
instead of associating myself as someone who's struggling to lose weight, who's on the weight loss, weight gain roller coaster, and all these other things attached to that story. Instead of that, At that moment, I became a one percenter. At 350 pounds,
Yeah.
I started to act, feel, and identify as a one percenter. And that was reinforced in a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. Great book. And he talks about people, his example was people trying to quit smoking. And you have two people who've quit smoking, and someone comes up to the first person and says, "Would you like a cigarette?" And that person says, "No, I'm trying to quit." Goes up to the second person and says, "Excuse me, would you like a cigarette?" "No, I'm a non-smoker."
Hmm.
That subtle difference
Mm.
is huge because the first one implies all kinds of effort
Yeah.
and overcoming, addiction and all this other stuff. It can really be very heavy on people. Whereas the other person is just simply stating their new identity. No, I'm a non-smoker. Very simple,
Yeah.
very easy. So applying that to my own journey, I went from being a person who struggles with weight to a person, I'm a one percenter.
Yeah.
And I lived that identity from day one. And here I am 5 years later.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I did get, it wasn't easy, but I made progress every day. But from day one, that was the biggest difference. Saying the prayer from day one and creating that new identity in my mind and recommitting to that identity every day of the journey.
Yeah. Yeah. You describe it as a subtle shift. It is. It's a powerful shift too, because without that change, people just go through life struggling with their diets and their weight loss programs and different approaches. So it's a necessary ingredient, it seems, to change that identity. I'm a non-smoker. I'm a person who weighs X number of pounds, whatever it is. You shift that whole self-definition. Yeah.
It's so big, it can't be underestimated or under appreciated. It's the difference between living your result from the inside out as opposed to living from the outside in, which is what all the solutions that are being advertised and broadcast to us daily are outside in solutions. Get our drug and you lose the weight. Go on our diet, you lose the weight. Get the surgery, you lose the weight. Have the hypnosis done, you'll lose the weight. Instead of create a new identity and start to change your life from the
Yeah.
inside out. And that is where the identity shift allows you to create from the inside out, which is how all sustainable success is achieved
Yeah.
from the inside out. The outside in solution is just a temporary band-aid,
Yeah.
and it will never give you the sustainable results you're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. The doctor who says you need to lose X number of pounds, that nice, but it's not going to do anything. So weight loss, it occurs to me, weight loss isn't just subtraction. It's really reconstruction.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I reconstructed my entire life. I'm living an entirely different existence
Yeah.
nowadays.
Yeah.
It was a number of lifestyle changes that I made an intentional plan that included everything. It included the way I eat, of course. The reason I got fat in the first place was poor diet, but it wasn't just eating too much. It was also the quality of the foods that I
Mm.
was eating were poor. And that's really the Western diet, processed foods, deep fried foods, a lot of sugar,
Sure.
alcohol, I
Yeah.
mean, I could go on and on. It wasn't one thing.
Yeah. Of course. Of course.
And then I also changed the way I operate, the way I move my body, the way I think, the way I pray. It was just a multitude of lifestyle changes that
Mm.
I changed, across the board.
Yeah.
And I'm now operating as a different person. I really
Yeah.
am. As a one
Yeah.
percenter,
One
my
percenter.
life looks
Yeah.
very, very different than it
Yeah.
did five
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah. That's such a great story. And we'll get into more of the detail. I really applaud you for that shift. So let me ask you one of the tough questions. How can someone begin writing or rewriting their internal narrative when it's been reinforced for so many years?
Yeah, it takes a lot of courage, but the first thing you really need to do is determine, okay, I don't care what precedent tells me. I don't care what my best weight loss to date has been. In my case, it was 50 pounds. That was the best I had done over the course of 30 years.
Mm.
And when I decided to create this new identity, a one percenter, I said, well, what do I want to weigh? And really, that's the question you have to ask. Not is it possible or what has been my best to date? What do I want to weigh? And I looked at a picture of myself when I was a senior in college. I was 215 pounds. And here I was at 350. And I said, that's what I want to weigh. I want to weigh 215 pounds.
Yeah.
So I wrote down a goal and I said it in the present tense as if it was an existent fact. On May 3rd, on or before May 3rd, 2023, now this is March 2021, I am so happy and grateful now that I've weighed 215 pounds and I've reached my personal mountaintop.
Yeah.
And in exchange for this goal, I'm changing my relationship with food. I'm moving my body. I'm visualizing, and I wrote the whole thing out on an index card. And that essentially is a snapshot of what you want your life to look like,
Yeah.
not just what you're going to weigh, but what are you going to be doing to contribute to this wellness and health goal?
Mhm.
You can't get something for nothing, and it's not just diet; it's everything.
It's everything. Sure.
So that's really where people need to make a decision based on what is possible and not what their precedent says. Because I set a goal to lose 135 pounds. My best goal to date was 50. So
Yeah.
who was I at 61 years old to say I was going to lose nearly three times my personal best? But
Yeah.
that's what I did. And
It's,
I did it because on day one, I wrote out a goal that was specific, measurable, bold,
hmm
and was very specific about what I was going to do in exchange for that particular goal.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen overnight, and it
Sure.
wasn't easy, but the first domino was that decision to
That
reach
decision. Yeah.
215 pounds.
To be the 1%. That's the way we rewrite that internal narrative. I mean, we've been telling ourselves a story all along of, gee, I know I should lose weight or I should probably try harder. But it's that very concrete decision. Here's where I want to be, and here's how I can see myself being there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And what it does is it creates the images in your mind. We think in pictures, and
hmm
people don't understand that. If I were to say to you, think of your bed,
hmm
what would happen? You would get a picture of your bed and on a movie screen in your mind. Now,
hmm
picture your
Yeah.
car. That changes. Picture Mick Jagger again. The image of Mick Jagger pops up on your mind.
Yeah.
What if I say to you, what? Think of your best, healthiest self. For a lot of people, the movie screen in their mind goes black
Uh-huh.
because they haven't contemplated what their best healthy
Mm,
self looks like.
mm,
And I did.
mm.
I had an image in my mind. This
Yeah.
is who I am right here, right now.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to live into. And it really was the words that I used and chose from day one really kind of dictated what that picture and what that
Yeah.
life was going to
Yeah.
look like. How was I going to be operating differently in my world? And
Yeah.
that's how I operate today, what I had
Yeah.
written down on day one.
Yeah. So you were able to envision that new picture of Fred Ford. You could create, you could paint that new picture. And I talk about that a lot as I talk about starting new chapters with our advancing age and how we can create a new script, write a new script. It occurs to me, I read a book years ago called Solution-Oriented Psychology or Psychotherapy.
Huh.
And it talked about restoring. We write a new story for ourselves because we've been living this past story, maybe others multiple stories, but now we can write a new story. And here's the new script, here's the new character who's near the new definition and so on. So I think it's exactly what you're talking about. Once you have that new position, it allows you to make changes and new decisions from that new place.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
You are in a different place, and that is what's going to motivate your thoughts, and your thoughts are going to motivate your actions, and
yeah,
that's going to compound as you move forward,
yeah,
as you're, developing this in your physical world, this new identity.
yeah,
You're operating differently. Your
yeah,
expectations change. The image and the story that you're telling yourself changes, and that's
yeah,
really all that matters.
yeah,
Very, very big part of, and the first chapter of my book is not about dieting or eating or food or even moving your body. The first chapter in my book is the hero's journey. You are willingly becoming the hero in your own new story.
Mm-hmm.
You're changing the narrative, and you're stepping up to say,
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
been I've been operating on a low level here. I haven't given it my best. I haven't opened up my mind to this possibility. I am gonna be the hero of my own story. I'm gonna be a one percenter,
Yeah.
and that's what I want to encourage your audience is
Yeah. Yeah.
step up and be a hero for your own
Yeah.
self. You don't have to say that, and you don't have to be
Sure.
cocky or arrogant about it, but
But
that's how
it's yeah.
your
Yeah.
mentality's got to be.
Yeah, you're right. It's a new description of ourselves. So you talked about present tense affirmation. I guess that's like the smoker who says, I'm not a smoker. Is that
Yeah.
what you mean?
Yeah,
You
well,
heard
that's something I
yourself
learned
and
from Bob Proctor.
yeah,
Who was an expert
yeah,
in Think and Grow Rich. He
yeah.
was, a preeminent student of that. He claims to have read a page of that book every day from the time he was 26 until when he died, when he was 86.
Yeah.
And when I trained with Bob, excuse me,
Yeah.
when I
Remarkable.
trained with Bob, he said, when you write out your goal, state it in the present tense as if it's an existent fact and attach the words I am and some kind of gratitude statement. So his way of doing it is on or before May 3rd. I am so happy and grateful now that I have reached my mountaintop and my goal weight of 215 pounds. That's a goal I read twice a day
Mm,
for 3 years until I reached my
mm,
literally every day. And now I rewrite the goal every morning to that
mm.
as far as
Sure.
a maintenance goal. So I am associating I'm saturating my mind with the possibility of being at my goal weight, and I did that every day of the journey. And so the present moment, uh, I didn't wait until I got to the mountaintop. In other words, I was that weight in my mind
Yeah.
on day one. And
Yeah.
that's a big distinction, and sometimes a little bit difficult for people to get acclimated to because we think in linear terms.
Mm.
But if you're projecting out there and you're imaging yourself at 215 pounds and you're taking ownership in the present moment, boy, it's very powerful.
Yeah. Now, I've read things about the brain not being able to distinguish between our own self-talk and reality. Does that ring a bell for you? Because
It does.
if we
It
tell
does.
our,
I actually, what I say in my book, and it's something I forget which book I picked it up from. It may have been Wallace Wattles' work,
hmm,
maybe somebody else, but it's one of those New Age authors. Says that your subconscious mind cannot differentiate between what's real and what's imagined.
hmm,
So if you insist upon, uh, because imagined reality is reality. So if you can imagine yourself operating as in a certain profession or in front of a large audience giving a speech or in a 215-pound body when you're 350, that becomes your existing reality. People make the mistake of thinking, this change they're seeking is going to take a long time. No, change takes place in 1 second.
hmm,
The minute you decide to be your ideal weight, that change has been affected. The results are going to take time. You're obviously not going to lose 135 pounds
yeah,
overweight, but
yeah,
the change took place on day one, on March 1st,
yeah,
2021,
yeah,
when I assumed a feeling of the wish fulfilled, and that
yeah.
comes from Neville Goddard, who's another New Age author.
Oh,
But your subconscious mind can't differentiate between what's real and what's imagined. So
yeah,
if you're flooding and saturating your mind with images of you operating in your world as the hero of your own story at your ideal weight, and if you insist upon thinking those thoughts and having those images repeating in your mind, now you're living from a different place. You're not living your own version of Groundhog's Day anymore.
yeah,
Now
yeah,
you're living the hero's journey, and
yeah,
that's all up to you.
yeah. Oh, that's great. So the belief in what is imagined is what now drives the new behaviors.
100%.
Yeah,
It's the belief that drives the behavior.
yeah,
It's the behavior that gets you the result and the feedback from the world that
yeah,
reinforces that belief.
yeah.
And it becomes a process. One of the things that I stress with my coaching clients if you're going to take this program on, understand implicitly that it has no finish line. This
Mm,
is not something you're going to do for a short period of time. You're going to make permanent changes to your life. And
mm,
once you've reached the mountaintop, sure, have that big celebration as I did.
yeah,
But then what? The celebration lasts one meal.
yeah,
Now, you wake up the next day, you have a decision to make. You're going to continue to be the hero of your own journey, under the radar, not bringing a lot of attention to
mm,
yourself, but are you going to continue to apply these success principles and be in that person? And that's what I've decided to do. Of course, I have an investment at stake. This is my business now. I'm
yeah,
going
yeah,
on to stages and I'm coaching people, so
yeah,
I have to more or less keep going with the Think and Grow Thin uh, uh, strategy.
sure.
But I think even if I wasn't getting in front of audiences, I love being thin or thinner than I
Mm,
was. I love being walking. I love being active. I love how I feel. I love how I look.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so for one more day, I'm going to commit to doing this.
yeah.
And that's all I need to do.
So these are the ripple effects of this new identity.
There's
Uh,
a lot of ripple effects.
all the changes that permeate the rest of your life, not just the way you eat, but so many other things that kind of spin out from this new
Yeah,
change. Yeah.
there's a that's not a phrase that I've used, but you're
Mm,
right on. There, the
mm,
ripple effects of this,
mm,
not only in other areas of my life, but it's also touching the people in my life.
mhm. Yeah,
I've inspired a number of people
yeah,
in my own family and my own network
yeah,
to take some action, and
yeah.
that was a not something I intended, but it's certainly something that has happened. Someone said to me not too long ago, maybe a few weeks ago, that they'd seen some of the posts on Facebook, and they said, you've been a real inspiration to me. And I reached out to that person and said, thank you. What have you actually done? And she said, I started following your journey a year ago. I've lost 70 pounds. Now, I
Wow.
hadn't spoken to her, uh, you know, for many years. She's a high school friend of mine.
Yeah.
And so you never know how you're going to touch
No,
people
no, I don't.
if you just go about your business and do the right
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Well, I have to ask about the problems with sustaining this change, and people struggle with consistency and follow up. And what 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 helps sustain motivation beyond that initial burst of enthusiasm?
It's got to be an inside job, as I said
Hmm.
earlier. The truth is, and the dialogue needs to be in our country, we we don't have a weight loss problem in our country. We have a weight loss maintenance
Hmm.
problem.
Hmm.
That's really where it's at because no matter what strategy you try, you're going to lose weight initially. I mean, no matter what diet, no matter what, if you get surgery, if you take these medications that are available now in all over the place, you're going to get the initial weight loss. But what's going to allow you to sustain that? Um, the key that I've found is you need to recommit every day to this. And you
Hmm.
need to do the things you promised yourself you would do, whether you feel like it or not. And that is the key. Recommitting daily and doing these things repetitively until they become habits. I never feel like going out for a walk. Never. And I walk every day. And I'm now 66 years old. And I walk 7.5 miles or more every
Every
single
day.
day.
Wow.
And just before I go outside, my ego saying, "Oh, take the day off. Oh, it's lousy weather out. Oh, you're doing good." And I just say, "Thank you for sharing, but I'm going to go out and walk." And
Yeah.
I never feel like it. But then 20 steps into my walk, I got the affirmations going. I'm counting my blessings. It's become a habitual part, a good
Hmm.
habit that I
Yeah.
have developed.
Yeah.
And it really would not have developed had it not been for the fact that I was willing to show up and do the things I promised
Yeah.
myself I would
Yeah.
do, whether I feel like it or not. And that's a key. A lot of times you're not going to, once that initial, as you mentioned, the initial inspiration is gone,
Hmm.
you've lost 20 pounds. Okay, great. Now you're
Hmm.
starting to get a little bit bored. Maybe you're starting to feel, that depriving yourself of these things is something you don't want to do. There is no finish line if you want the sustainable result.
Yeah.
And the sustainable result can only be achieved if you're making a fresh commitment every day and showing up and doing the work. And that's people don't want to hear that, frankly.
No.
People don't want to hear that, it's there's no finish line. You got to just keep going. You got to make permanent changes
Yeah.
and turn those changes into habits
Yeah.
until that's your habitual way of being. But that's what it takes to
Hmm.
sustain this. It's not easy, and that's what the weight loss industry. One of the biggest lies they tell people is if you just get our drug, you'll lose the weight, you'll get your to the promised land. If you take this diet, we'll eat the food, lose the weight. That's one of the taglines for one of these companies.
Yeah.
You know what? They're doing a disservice because they're not saying it's going to be hard.
Sure.
Uh, they're trying to tell you it's going to be easy if you'll just get our product, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
simply a
Yeah.
lie.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's more than a destination, right? I mean, yeah,
Way more.
it's
Yeah.
lifestyle. It's
It,
lifestyle. We
it, it
talked about
is.
lifestyle. It's not something you do for a while and then everything is great. It's lifestyle. Yeah.
It's lifestyle and it's mindset.
Yeah.
When someone had in my coaching group, someone had said, "What would you say? What percentage of this program would you say is attitudinal?" And I said, 100%.
Yeah, of course.
It's 100%. You have to be that person in your mind
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
When you make mistakes and you have that indulgent weekend, that could be a portal back to eating unhealthy again. And it
Hmm.
was in my case. Why did I stop the diets in the past?
Yeah.
Lots of reasons, I suppose. But
Yeah.
it was usually a vacation or a long weekend where I just overindulged. And then, came Monday or the end of the vacation, and I just couldn't get back
Mm.
eating the way I was before the vacation. So I just went back to eating lousy.
Hmm. Hmm.
You have to get up one more time than you fall, and
Yeah.
that's really, you turn this into a simple math problem. Just, when you have that slip up,
Yeah.
forgive yourself easily and freely, and then get right back to it and make that fresh commitment and get back on the horse.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
hard, but it's eminently doable when you break it down into,
Mm.
into daily habit, one
Sure.
day at a time.
And it's so easy to get pulled back into that old behavior too. So as you say, it's recommitting every day. That there's a saying, "Be the change that you want to become," and it's nonstop. It's a very dynamic process.
It is, and,
Yeah,
and I love that quote. I have that in my
yeah,
day planner. It's
I
from
love it
Gandhi.
too. Yeah, yeah,
And one of the things that I think helps people, and they don't want to hear initially, but I try to explain to them. We've heard you've been around a while, as I have, Doc, and you've probably heard the saying, "Old habits die hard." And I tell people flat out, old habits never die.
yeah. That's right.
The old habits never die. The
Mm.
the possibility of going back to eating the way you used to is simply that. It's a possibility that you are deciding against because you're deciding in your favor in the present moment. But that possibility will show up again tomorrow. Someone asked me, I think early on in the journey, maybe a year into the journey, how often do you feel like quitting? And I said, every day,
Yeah,
because quitting is just a possibility, and that
yeah,
possibility shows up in my mind
yeah,
every day. My
yeah,
ego wants me to stop
yeah.
because it wants to go back to living that comfortable
Hmm.
lifestyle,
Hmm.
where I'm overindulging and I'm drinking too much and I'm not moving and I'm being lazy, and
Hmm.
it's just a possibility. That old habit will always follow me the rest of my days on earth, so I
Yeah,
just have to,
yeah,
when it shows up, thank you for sharing. I'm going in a different direction, very
mhm,
casually
yeah,
tossing that possibility
yeah,
aside. But old habits never die. So don't
yeah.
think that they do.
That's so good that you can, just not just admit it, but pronounce it that there's always that possibility of stopping. There's always that temptation or inclination to say, well, maybe I've done enough. But I mean, that's just being honest. We have to accept that because all these thoughts come into play. That doesn't mean we have to follow them. It's something that we can pursue or we can continue on the same journey. Yeah. This is great stuff. Fred, before we continue, one of the questions I often hear is, these are great ideas, but how do I actually put them into practice? That's really the purpose behind my Living to 100 community and my Better, Longer, and Happier programs, turning insight into action. Whether for your own life or within a group setting, you can explore both at Living to 100. Club. Fred, I just, I have to commend you on the the information that you're sharing. I think it's such groundbreaking information. I think it's so powerful, and I know my listeners will benefit from this. But what advice would you give to someone in midlife or later who just feels stuck in an old identity?
Yeah. My first bit of advice is stop saying that you're stuck.
Mm,
What language is declarative in nature. What we say, we declare to be true in our own life, and everything is an inside job. So I felt stuck. I felt like I was on that weight loss, weight gain roller coaster that I'd never get off. And I just made a decision that it was do or die,
mm,
uh, that I was going to do this. And I understand. I can completely relate to people who feel stuck. There's a lot of people out there who are in the similar boat that I was in. Having lost the weight, gained the weight back, and then some. And then, the trajectory was like this. I mean, it was weight loss, weight gain, but the trajectory was when I got married in 1992, I weighed 265 pounds. So that 100 pounds or so came on over the course of a long period of time. When you finally stop and you stop the inner dialogue that relates to that heavy person that's stuck or frustrated,
mm,
when you stop saying those things, when you start a whole new inner dialogue, that is really the portal to get to a better result. And
mm.
it's also the portal to the renewed thinking, the identity shift that I've talked about
Yeah, yeah,
a lot throughout this podcast. That was the big one for me was I stopped saying I can't lose weight.
yeah,
I'm I'm just a person who struggles with weight, and I started saying I'm a one percenter,
yeah.
and that colored every other thought that followed.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that first your first answer there about stop using the word stuck because that again, we hang on to these and in some ways they're a crutch, they're a buffer. I'm stuck, I'm not getting anywhere. So we let go of that and we hold on to a new word. I'm
Right?
not stuck, I'm
Exactly.
changing. I'm not a smoker. Yeah.
Exactly. You probably heard the saying that what follows your I am is what becomes your truth. So if
Mm.
you say I am stuck,
Uh,
the universe is just responding in kind, saying, okay, you're stuck. Let me keep you stuck. When you say I am a one percenter, the creative energies of the universe are
mm,
complicit in helping you in
mm.
whatever way, but they're neutral to your desires. So if you're
Yeah.
saying I'm broke, it's going to keep
Mm.
you it's going to keep you in poverty. If you
Yeah.
say I
Yeah.
am rich with ideas
Yeah.
and I am thriving, I say affirmations every day, and a lot of my affirmations start with I am.
Yeah.
I am eating the best foods in the right amounts every
Yeah.
single day. I
Yeah.
am living my best life now,
Yeah.
and so on. And the verbs that I use are active verbs, ing verbs. So it's
Mm.
again, it reflects and is in sync with the idea that this is an ongoing thing. It has no finish line. I am contributing to
Yeah.
my health every day. I am living as a hero in my own journey, and
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's the whole inner dialogue for me has
Yeah.
completely shifted and changed.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that is, I mean, I said this word already, powerful, but it is powerful information, and it's at the heart of how we improve our lives, how we change. Because I mean, I've known as a psychologist for 40 plus years. It's hard to change behavior, but you're giving us kind of a really kind of heartfelt inside approach to this because it's coming from your own experience. It's coming from books, people, Bob Proctor, I mean, powerful man and such an influential thinker. All of your experience you're putting in and sharing this. And I really think this is like, I don't know, it's the heart of behavior change. Yeah.
It absolutely is, and I don't believe, one of the lines that I use in my book is when you're looking for the outside in solution, whether it be big pharma, the drug or the diet or whatever, one of the common threads of those outside in solutions is they don't want you to think and grow thin. They want
Mm,
to do the thinking for you. They're going to
mm,
tell you
yeah,
how you need to behave. And the truth is that it's not a behavior issue, it's an identity issue.
yeah,
And when you begin to identify as the healthy person that you want to be and living from the inside out, when you begin to cultivate that mindset
yeah,
of a one percenter, of
yeah,
a healthy person, you're rejecting the outside in solution and you are thinking and growing thin. That's where the
yeah,
name of the book,
yeah, sure.
I've used the success principles that Bob had taught me and that I had read in all these. I've been a personal development student for 30 years,
Yeah.
and I had never thought to apply these principles to a health and weight loss goal until
Hmm.
I had that, that moment when I was
Yeah,
350.2, and I said,
yeah.
let me
Wow.
gather all my material together
Wow.
here and let me do this the right way. And
Yeah.
I think I found something.
I love the idea that you spent 10 years in stand-up comedy. What did comedy teach you about human psychology?
Someone, I don't know who said it, but they said that the straightest line between two people is humor. And I've found that to be true, that if you can lighten up the conversation, uh, it makes everyone in the room comfortable, more comfortable. Um, and what I really learned is, to lighten up, take a lighter approach to your life. Don't take yourself so seriously. Maybe that sounds contrary to what I'm talking about here because I'm talking about being a one percenter. But it comes into play when when you slip up and you don't do what you said you're going to do, and you can just lighten up on yourself.
Hmm.
Forgive yourself freely and easily.
Hmm.
Um, and believe it or not, during my study of weight loss and different strategies, laughter actually helps with weight loss. Believe it
Uh,
or not, that's actually if you can look that up
yeah.
on Google or AI or whatever, you'll find that that's true. That a good belly laugh
Mm,
can aid you in your weight loss. So
mm,
there's another reason
mm.
to take things lightly and
Interesting.
to
Sure. Yeah.
search out humor.
Well, humor is, we know among people who live longer and, is a factor for longevity. Humor seems to be kind of a contributing factor here. What role does it play in aging well? What role does laughter play in longevity?
I recently saw an interview with Dick Van Dyke, who just turned 100, and someone was asking him what his key to living that long.
Hmm.
And he told a story about his father. He said his father was always angry, very angry man. He's angry at everything. He was always yelling at the TV and this, that. And his father died fairly young.
Hmm.
And Dick Van Dyke said, I took that as my
Hmm.
cue from the
Hmm.
universe to
Hmm.
just be light, to be happy, to not to reject the anger, not walk around with a
Yeah.
chip on my shoulder. I
Yeah.
think, if you're enjoying your life, if you're laughing a lot, it's not only just helping with your overall health. I think it's the quality of your life improves.
Hmm.
And if you're, on the other hand, if you're angry about everything, the quality of your life diminishes. And I think it really does, not just psychologically. I think it affects your physical body.
Hmm.
I've found that to be true in my own life, and I can catch it if I'm in that a period of time where I'm angry about everything or I'm anxious about something or whatever it happens to be that's going on outside in the world that I'm angry about. When
Hmm.
I reel myself back in and I say, look, I can control only one thing, and that's what I'm thinking about.
Sure.
You have very little control over your
Yeah.
environment,
Yeah.
but you have absolute control over how you respond to your environment. So if you're just taking things lightly and living your life one day at a time, I think it has a major impact on health and longevity.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. And we know people who are, living longer. The centenarians say that humor is a big part of living longer. And part of that humor is, as you say, it's that we can't control things. We can't control a lot of things, and we do have to adapt and kind of flow with things, and we become more tolerant of other people who are different. And humor, I think. lightens the load, as you said. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's something we have control over. And a lot of people are living the life of a victim because that's what they've gotten accustomed to doing. I tell a story, a parable about two identical twins who were raised by an abusive alcoholic father. And after the father died, the twins went in separate directions. One turned out to be a model citizen, had a beautiful family and a house in the suburbs. His brother ended up into drugs and alcohol and gambling and ended up with a long prison sentence. And a local reporter heard the story and said, how could two identical twins growing up in the same environment have turned out so drastically different? So she decided to go and interview them, and she was determined to ask just one question. And that one question was going to be, how did you turn out the way you did?
Mhm.
And to her surprise, the identical twins gave the same answer to that question. When asked, how did you turn out the way you did? Both twins answered, I was raised by an alcoholic, abusive father. I had no choice but to turn out this way.
Oh.
And both of them, of course, were wrong.
Hmm.
They had absolute choice over, the environment they were born into was unfortunate,
Sure.
but one of them decided, I'm not going to be like my father. And the other one said, I was abused. So one was acting as a victor,
Hmm.
and the other one was acting as a victim. And that became their identity. And that's what they lived into.
Yeah.
Different, with the same exact environment and the same DNA, they turned out to be completely different
Hmm.
because of the way that they reacted to
Yeah.
their environment.
Yeah. These beliefs have such a strong influence on us early
Huge.
on. We don't even know the role they play until we stop and look at it. Why do I do that? Why do I keep doing that? Yeah.
Yeah,
And then we understand.
very true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great, a great conversation, Fred. Thank you for joining me on this program. For those who might want to buy your book or learn more about you, do you have a website?
I do. Yeah. It's authorfredford.com. The book is available on Amazon. It's called Think and Grow Thin.
Yeah.
And you can reach me at my website, but my email address is fred at
Mm-hmm.
authorfredford.com.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to hear from some of your listeners, and I hope they get some good value out of the conversation we had today. I've really
Yeah.
enjoyed the time.
Great. I hope so too. Thanks for that. So authorfredford.com and your email, fred at authorfredford.com. Well,
Right.
thanks again. Thanks to all of our listeners for tuning in. If today's conversation gave you something to think about, you'll find more ideas, tools, and discussions at living200.club and inside the Living 200 community. Until next time, keep moving forward with purpose, curiosity, and a commitment to living well at every age.